What's good, everybody? This is CP, and today I'm going to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. Today I'm going to talk about a few low-key / underrated free agents Ken Holland can go after to improve his team this offseason. Now, obviously, it would be a dream come true for many Oilers fans if Holland and Oilers management can add a name like John Klingberg, Val Nichushkin, or even Andre Palat. However, let's keep things a little bit more realistic here today and not build our hopes up. With that in mind, here's a list of a few potentially underrated UFAs who might be good additions for the Oilers to bring in before the start of next season. The first name I'm going to talk about is Mason Marchment, who played for the Florida Panthers last season. In my opinion, I think he could be one of the more interesting and low-key sleeper names that the Oilers go after in free agency this summer. He had a career year last year, popping in 18 goals along with 29 assists for a career high of 47 points in only 54 games. Impressively, he was able to do all that on a super bargain one-year deal at only $800K. And as we look at the Florida Panthers budget, it looks like they have a lot of money committed to their other top forwards. So based on those figures alone, it doesn't look like they have the cap space to bring back Marchment, especially if he's looking for a multi-year deal or a raise. With that in mind, I think there's a very good chance that Marchment is going to test out the free agent market to see what's out there. In terms of style of play, Marchment is a big, strong player with above average skills and decent finishing ability. Essentially, he's a pretty versatile, hard-nosed forward who can move up and down the lineup. And bringing in a guy like Marchment to Edmonton would definitely add some size to the forward group along with some physicality and some scoring depth in the bottom six forward group. I'm not saying that he's exactly the same or just as good, but in some ways his play does remind me a little bit of Tom Wilson. And at his best, I feel like Marchment can be that type of player. He's still not that old as he's only 27 years old. So if the Oilers were to give him a multi-year deal, I feel like he should still be in his prime for at least the next few seasons. At this point, it is unknown how many teams are looking for a player like Marchment. However, it wouldn't surprise me if he asked for something around the $2.5 to $3 million range. And if that's the case, do you think Ken Holland should at least inquire, or do you think that's too expensive for the Oilers and they should look elsewhere? Another free agent sleeper who I think should be on the Oilers' radar is Nicolas Deslauriers. Now let's assume that the Cassian trade rumors are true and they do find a way to either buy him out or ship out his contract. Then the Oilers will definitely need to bring back some toughness into their lineup. And I think a player like Deslauriers could be very useful, especially during crunch time or in the playoffs. Essentially, he could be brought in to fill Cassian's role, but likely at a much lower price point. He was only a $1 million cap hit the last 2 years, and given his age and his role, it doesn't look like he has the market to demand a huge raise. So if anything, I feel like his next contract could be close to what he made the past 2 years, which is likely somewhere around the $1 million cap hit mark. At the same time, Deslauriers is one of those few legit fighters left in the league. Especially in this free agent pool, I don't think there are many similar type of players available. So bringing in Deslauriers should definitely help the Oilers in that they are arguably adding one of the tougher players in the league who in many ways can still skate a little bit and isn't a huge liability in the lineup. Overall, I think this would be one of the more underrated and low-risk deals the Oilers could pursue, and also adds an important element to the team, which I think is still valuable, especially when they play tougher teams like the Calgary Flames or the Minnesota Wild. If the Oilers are looking for a little bit more skill and secondary scoring, then maybe a name like Max Domi could make sense. In some ways, I feel like Max Domi might be a very underrated free agent this summer for the Oilers to target. Mainly because he's played on 4 different teams in the last 4 years since 2018, and he's coming off somewhat of a down year. He didn't really have an amazing year. Considering how he made $5.3 million last year, I don't think this is a great year for Domi to demand a huge raise or a long-term contract. Based on this condition, I don't expect many teams to give him a similar salary this summer. If anything, I think he will likely have to take a pay cut and maybe a short-term deal to re-establish his career. Overall, Domi has over 500 NHL games of experience and has shown that he can score in this league. And at his best, he's actually a very, very useful top 6 forward. He also brings a little bit of speed, and despite his size, he's actually a pretty gritty player with a lot of skill as well. So if you add him to Edmonton, I don't think he will look out of place anywhere on the lineup, especially somewhere in the top 3 lines. And if he does come in, he will likely be a number 5 or number 6 scoring option. So definitely a lot less pressure than playing in a market like Montreal where he was expected to score every night. And who knows, this might actually be a very good fit for him. Ideally, the Oilers could lock him on a short-term deal, kind of like a show-me deal to see how things work out for both sides. And perhaps Edmonton is a good place for him to rebuild his NHL resume like Evander Kane did for himself last season. And maybe after a year or two, this gives Domi a shot to secure a long-term deal. So obviously there is some risk in signing Domi because he has bounced around a bit, but Ken Holland has shown that he's not afraid to take gambles and sometimes they pan out pretty well. And if Domi does come in and pan out well, he could likely be a very important secondary scoring guy. Or let's say worst case scenario, he's a third line winger. Even at that position, I feel like he's a huge add for the Oilers because he would definitely improve the Oilers' bottom 6 offense and can occasionally move up and play with the big dogs like McDavid and Draisaitl. So if you were Ken Holland, for the right price, would you go after a veteran name like Max Domi, or will you continue to fill that spot with someone maybe like Zach Kassian or Warren Foegele? Now let me know about Domi because I'm 50-50, but overall I feel like if they can get him at a good price, then he might actually turn out to be a pretty decent signing. Because if anything, I feel like right now his NHL value is at an all-time low. It's a good time to buy in right now before he heats up and gets you 72 points again. If the Oilers are looking for some defensive depth, then a very underrated free agent signing might be someone like Mark Pysyk. Assuming that they run it back with CC, Barrie, and Bouchard again next year, I don't think it could hurt the Oilers to bring in a guy like Pysyk just for a little bit more insurance. Pysyk could definitely be a guy that jumps in occasionally throughout the season, maybe due to injuries or maybe when Barrie or Bouchard's play is on a slump. He's a proven NHL defender who's a solid veteran and a reliable bottom pairing, maybe a number 6 or 7 guy, especially on the right side where the Oilers don't have the best defenders. I personally don't think he has any problem coming in on any night and giving the team a solid 15 to 17 minutes. The most attractive thing about Pysyk is that he only made $900K last year, and at this point in his career he is what he is, so I don't think his agent and him could demand a huge raise. And if the Oilers could get him for around the same price or maybe anything under 1.2, I think he could turn out to be a very solid depth defender. And compared to what the Oilers had last year, I think a player like Pysyk would be a huge upgrade compared to someone like Chris Russell. And bringing a player like Pysyk in will definitely give less pressure for a player like Broberg to break in and contribute solid minutes right away. Yeah, so let me know if you agree or disagree with what I said in this video. Feel free to comment below and share some of your thoughts, and I'll see everybody next time.